Sir, this seat is for premium passengers only. The voice cut through the cabin like a blade. What started as a simple seating question would soon explode into a national reckoning. But what the flight crew didn't know was that the man they tried to humiliate owned 23% of their entire airline. Stick around. You won't want to miss how one man flipped the entire aviation industry mid-flight. Sir, you need to move to the back. This section is reserved for our premium passengers only. The flight attendant's voice was sharp, just loud enough to draw attention. Phones started lifting in the cabin, camera apps quietly opening. In seat 1A sat Daniel Rivers, quietly scrolling through his phone. He wore faded blue jeans, a forest green hoodie, and carried a worn leather briefcase resting at his feet. He didn't look like someone who belonged in first class, at least not to Megan Ford, the flight attendant standing over him. Her voice grew firmer as she tapped her digital tablet. Sir, did you hear me? You're in the wrong section. Without looking rattled, Daniel lifted his phone and calmly held out his mobile boarding pass. Seat 1A. First class. Megan narrowed her eyes. That must be a mistake. Let me see your ID. Around them, a growing number of passengers were now watching, some already streaming on social media. Twitter user @JetJustice posted, "Oh, black passenger being challenged in first class. Let's see where this goes." Overhead, the screen above gate 41 blinked red. Flight 880 to New York. Final boarding in 37 minutes. Megan scrutinized Daniel's boarding pass like it was counterfeit currency. A second attendant, Rachel, approached from the galley. "Everything all right?" "This gentleman seems a bit confused about his seat," Megan replied, her voice edged with thinly veiled condescension. Daniel remained buckled in, showing no sign of confrontation. "Ma'am, I understand the concern, but I'd appreciate it if you could double-check your system." Megan's fingers flew across her tablet. After a few seconds, she shook her head. "Sir, our records show you purchased an economy ticket. I'm going to need you to relocate to your seat in coach." Daniel's jaw tightened. Calmly, he reached into his pocket, pulled up the airline app again, and held it toward her. "This shows a first-class seat. 1A, paid in full 3 weeks ago." An older white man in seat 2A leaned over and said, "Son, maybe it's best you just go to your proper seat. No reason to make a scene." Megan gave him a small nod. "Exactly. These kinds of mix-ups happen. Maybe you accidentally booked coach. It's common for folks unfamiliar with how upgrades work." The implication stung, but Daniel didn't flinch. Instead, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a platinum loyalty card, placing it squarely on the tray table. 340,000 miles flown with Horizon Skies. Platinum status. 6 years running. Megan didn't even blink. "Sir, anyone can buy those online nowadays. I'm going to have to ask you again. Gather your things and move to the back." Phones were still recording, and one man had just decided he wasn't moving. The tension was thick as Megan continued to stand her ground, eyes darting from her tablet to Daniel Rivers, as if expecting him to magically disappear. Behind her, seat 3B's occupant, a woman in her 40s with striking red lipstick and a keen eye, quietly began filming. Live from Horizon Skies Flight 880, she whispered into her phone, "Watch how quickly things go wrong when you assume the wrong person is in the wrong seat." Back at the front, Daniel remained motionless, his voice low but unwavering. "I've shown you my ticket, my ID, my status. I'm in the right seat. I've flown this airline for years." Megan pressed her earpiece. "Dispatch, passenger in 1A is refusing to move." Her tone was curt, professional, yet packed with prejudice. And then, in a tone designed to sting, she muttered, "We have another one trying to game the system." Daniel heard her. So did Captain Lawrence Becker, who now stepped out of the cockpit. At 54, the man had an air of authority, with his silver hair swept back and his uniform pressed to perfection. His gaze swept over the cabin, immediately honing in on Daniel's casual attire. Hoodie, jeans, sneakers. "What's going on here?" Becker asked flatly, eyes avoiding Daniel altogether. "Passengers in the wrong seat won't move to coach," Megan replied quickly. The captain turned to Daniel and gave a tight smile. "Sir, you're holding up departure. We need you to take your assigned seat immediately." Daniel looked up slowly, calm as ever. "Captain, I am in my assigned seat, first class, 1A. Here's my boarding pass, my ID, and my frequent flyer card." Becker didn't glance at any of it. His answer was clipped. Son, I've been flying for over a decade. I know when someone's trying to score an upgrade they didn't pay for. Then came the order. Megan, call ground security. Row by row, passengers in first class began shifting uncomfortably. Some lowered their screens. Others raised their phones. The woman in 3B whispered, "Are they serious right now?" Meanwhile, Daniel quietly activated his phone's camera. He turned to the screen. For the record, it's 2:47 p.m. I'm sitting in seat 1A of Horizon Sky's flight 880 to New York. I have a confirmed first-class ticket, and I'm being asked to leave despite providing documentation. Captain Becker stepped forward, now irritated. Put that phone away. You're being disruptive. I'm documenting discrimination, Daniel replied evenly. Megan was already on her radio. Gate 41. We need ground security. Male passenger refusing to comply with crew instructions. The older man in 2A scoffed. Just move, buddy. Don't make this harder. But the woman in 3B wasn't staying silent. Wait a minute, she said. He showed you his boarding pass. Why aren't you verifying it? Megan snapped. Ma'am, please don't interfere. He bought a first-class seat. I saw it. Megan smirked. We've been doing this long enough to know when someone's faking it. Daniel made a call. His voice was low, measured. Yeah, I'm running late. Start without me. I'll handle it personally. Becker overheard. Handle what? Who are you calling? But Daniel said nothing. Instead, he began typing furiously into his notes app. The hashtag Horizon discrimination had already begun trending. And outside the plane, security was just arriving. This wasn't just a misunderstanding anymore. This was about to become a movement. 2 security officers entered the jet bridge with brisk purpose. Officer Mike Herrera, a 20-year veteran, and Officer Leasing Nguyen, quiet but sharp. Both scanned the cabin, now buzzing with whispers and raised eyebrows. Captain Becker stepped aside and pointed directly at Daniel. Passenger is in the wrong seat. He's non-compliant and delaying takeoff. Officer Herrera turned toward Daniel, who was still seated in 1A, calm, briefcase closed, camera phone still recording. Sir, may I see your boarding pass? Herrera asked, respectful but firm. Daniel handed it over without hesitation. Herrera held the pass against Daniel's driver's license, checking names, times, seat numbers. Then, after a few beats of silence, he turned to Becker. This shows first, class, seat 1A, he said aloud. Megan interjected, her voice sharp. It's clearly fraudulent. He's trying to scam an upgrade. Herrera turned slowly to her. Ma'am, these boarding passes come from your own system. What part of this seems fraudulent? Megan hesitated. Well, these people know how to manipulate the system. The cabin went quiet. Those 2 words, these people, landed with a weight no one could ignore. Daniel didn't move. His eyes simply met Herrera's. There was understanding there. Shared history, unspoken. Sir, Herrera said gently. Would you mind stepping off the aircraft so we can verify everything with the gate agent? Just for clarification. Daniel nodded. Of course. He stood, collected his briefcase, and as he stepped into the aisle, his phone buzzed. A brief message flashed across the screen before he locked it. Board meeting moved to conference room A, emergency session. Seat 3BS occupant, still filming, caught the message. Her brows furrowed. What kind of economy passenger gets texts about emergency board meetings? Back in the terminal, Flight 880 was now marked delayed, 23 minutes on the departure board. Waiting at Gate 41 was Denise Morgan, the airline's ground supervisor. She'd spent 14 years with Horizon Skies, working her way from baggage crew to operations lead. She prided herself on being cool under pressure. What's the issue? She asked Officer Herrera. He handed her Daniel's documents. Boarding pass, ID, loyalty card. Denise studied them like an IRS auditor. Looked up at Daniel. Looked back down. Everything appears valid, Mr. Rivers, she said carefully. But due to the concerns raised by the flight crew, we'll need to reseat you in coach for this flight. Daniel didn't flinch. His voice was even. And what behavior triggered those concerns? I was sitting quietly in my assigned seat. You were being argumentative, Denise said flatly. No, Daniel replied. I was providing documentation. That's not arguing. That's correcting. Passengers were now gathering near the windows and gate desks, recording from all angles. A Jet Justice live stream was blowing up. Her voice could be heard through her feed. They've removed him from the plane. The man had a first-class ticket, showed multiple forms of ID, and they're treating him like a criminal. Comments flooded in. Someone lawyer this man up. This is textbook discrimination. Find out who he is. This is gonna blow up. Inside the gate, more phones came out. Teenagers filmed TikToks. Business travelers were now switching tabs on LinkedIn. Daniel checked his watch. He wasn't worried. He was waiting. And then he spoke. "May I speak with your district manager?" he asked calmly. Denise actually laughed. "Sir, I'm the senior supervisor on duty. You can file a complaint online like everyone else." But Daniel didn't blink, because what was coming next would turn this from a scandal into a reckoning. At gate 41, the temperature of the room had changed. Not literally, but in energy. Something unspoken was shifting. Daniel Rivers stood calmly, suitcase by his side, eyes steady. Denise Morgan was still holding his documents when a voice rang out from the crowd. "I was on that plane," said the woman from seat 3B. This man was sitting in his seat. Quiet. Respectful. He showed his boarding pass, his ID. Everything. Denise stiffened. "Ma'am, please return to your seat. I'm a paying customer," the woman continued. "And what I witnessed looks a lot like discrimination." A businessman from first class stepped forward. "She's right. I saw it too." The flight attendant never even looked at his paperwork. She just assumed he didn't belong. Denise's composure faltered. Around them, more passengers gathered. Phones were everywhere. Some held low. Others held high like torches in a digital protest. "I'm asking one last time," Denise said, turning to Daniel. "Coach seat or next flight?" Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't flinch. He just pulled out his phone and made another call. This one lasted 47 seconds. His words were hushed but carried weight. "Yes. Conference room A, emergency board session. I'll join momentarily." The woman in 3B heard him. "Conference room? Board session?" Denise's irritation was giving way to unease. "Who are you calling?" "My office," Daniel said simply. "Your office?" she repeated, skeptical. Without a word, Daniel opened his briefcase and removed a leather business card holder. He selected one card and handed it to her. Denise read the name, and her face turned ghost white. Daniel Rivers, Chief Executive Officer, Rivers Global Holdings. Gasps erupted from the crowd. The businessman from first class frantically Googled the name, then looked up in awe. "Holy crap," he whispered. "Rivers Global, they own real estate, energy, media. They're worth billions." The live stream chat lit up. "Wait, he owns the airline? This is a movie. Someone call Netflix. He's the second largest shareholder. Horizon is done." Denise's hands began to tremble. "Mr. Rivers, I didn't realize." "That's the point," Daniel replied calmly. "You shouldn't treat customers based on what you think they're worth." He pulled another document from his briefcase, this one stamped, signed, and sealed. 6 months ago, Rivers Global Holdings acquired a 23% stake in Horizon Skies, he announced, making us the second largest shareholder of the airline. The crowd gasped again. Captain Becker, who had come out from the plane to see what the delay was, paled. "That can't be. We'd have heard about a major acquisition." Daniel turned toward him. "Captain Lawrence Becker, 15 years of service. Strong flight safety record. I've reviewed your personnel file myself." Becker's jaw dropped. "You, what?" "Due diligence," Daniel replied. "Every key employee in a company we invest in is reviewed." Megan, still standing near the jetway, began to tremble. She understood what had just happened. She had discriminated against a man who owned the plane she was working on. "Mr. Rivers," said the woman from 3B, still filming. "Are you saying you own part of the airline?" 23%, he confirmed. "And I have documents to prove it." He held up one more page. Horizon Skies Annual Financial Summary. Total revenue last year, $8.2 billion. Our investment, $1.9 billion. The businessman gasped. He's not just rich. He's the reason this airline's still running. Daniel wasn't finished. He pulled a thick folder from his briefcase, labeled Horizon Corporate Account Summary. Rivers Global books over 800 flights per year with this airline, he said. Annual spending, $1.2 million. Denise took a step back. Because this wasn't just a customer. This wasn't just a shareholder. This was a reckoning in motion, and the boardroom was about to feel the tremor. By the time Daniel Rivers' second live stream hit 5,000 viewers across multiple passenger feeds, Horizon Skies wasn't just facing a delay, it was facing a full blown crisis. And Daniel was no longer the man in seat 1A. He was the man holding the trigger on systemic reform. Inside Conference Room A at Horizon Sky's headquarters in Dallas, the air was thick with panic. CEO Claire Monroe sat at the head of a long mahogany table, surrounded by board members, legal counsel, and VPs. On the large video wall, 3 live feeds, one from Gate 41, another showing the airline's plunging stock, and a third streaming Daniel Rivers' confrontation in real time. "Patch Mr. Rivers through," Claire ordered. A moment later, Daniel's calm face appeared on the screen. Behind him, the gate area resembled a courtroom, phones raised, passengers gathered like a jury. "Mr. Rivers, you have the floor," Claire said, trying to maintain composure. "Thank you, Claire. Before we discuss solutions, the board should fully understand what happened today and what it reflects." Daniel gestured slightly, and Megan Ford was pushed into frame by his supervisor. "Miss Ford," Daniel said, not unkindly, "would you repeat what you told me when you first approached?" Her voice barely a whisper. "I told you that section was for premium passengers only. And when I showed you my platinum loyalty card, I said anyone could get those online." The board shifted uncomfortably. Then one member, James Yoon, leaned forward from the New York satellite office. "Ms. Ford, what made you assume Mr. Rivers' documents were fraudulent?" She glanced at Daniel, at the cameras, at the gate crowd watching in silence. But she didn't answer. Daniel stepped in. "I'll save her the discomfort. She assumed I didn't belong because of how I looked. Hoodie, jeans, and black." Claire Monroe closed her eyes. "Mr. Rivers, what are your immediate demands?" "I'll present the data first. Then we'll talk solutions." Daniel connected his tablet. On screen, live metrics appeared. Customer satisfaction, 3.2 out of 5. Industry average, 3.8. DOT discrimination complaints in 2024, 147. 43% above the industry norm. The board members scribbled furiously. "And here's Rivers Global's travel spend," Daniel continued. "Horizon Skies, $1.2 million per year. Delta, $650,000. American, $800,000. The implications were clear. Horizon wasn't just at risk of losing a customer, they were at risk of losing influence. Given today's incident, Daniel said, "We are re-evaluating our vendor partnerships based on alignment with our corporate values." Another board member, Lisa Harrell, asked gently, "Mr. Rivers, what resolution do you propose?" Daniel didn't hesitate. First, immediate termination of all employees involved in discriminatory actions. Megan nearly collapsed where she stood. Second, mandatory anti-bias training for all customer-facing staff, implemented within 30 days. Heads nodded on screen. Third, a third-party anonymous reporting system for discrimination. Agreed. Fourth, a $500,000 fund for diversity and inclusion initiatives. The legal counsel shifted in their chairs but didn't protest. And finally, Daniel said, his tone firmer now, a public apology from Horizon Skies acknowledging systemic failures. Claire looked at her legal team. "That could expose us, Dewey." Daniel cut her off. "You're already exposed. There are 6,000 people watching live. Your stock has dropped 2.1% in the last 90 minutes. The live stream chat exploded with emojis, applause, and hashtags. Hashtag Rivers Reform. Hashtag Fly with Dignity. Hashtag Change is in the air. Claire inhaled deeply. All conditions accepted. Applause erupted, not just at the gate, but in living rooms, waiting lounges, and TikTok feeds across the country. But Daniel wasn't finished. "There's one more thing," he said, "and this one's personal." Everyone leaned in. "Starting this quarter, 20% of executive bonuses will be tied to measurable improvements in diversity, equity, and inclusion, with quarterly public reports." Silence. Then Claire nodded slowly. "Agreed." The framework was set. The airline would never be the same. But Daniel wasn't trying to punish. He was trying to rebuild the skies. 71 hours after Flight 880 was delayed on the tarmac, Daniel Rivers sat at his Chicago office, a view of Lake Michigan glittering behind him. His mahogany desk was neatly lined with printouts and reports, chronologically organized by his assistant, Monica Santos. "The termination letters were processed yesterday," Monica reported. "Megan Ford and Captain Becker, dismissed with cause. Denise Morgan has been demoted to training coordinator and will undergo mandatory sensitivity training." Daniel nodded. "The new training protocol?" "Went live this morning. 8 hours of mandatory bias recognition modules. All Horizon Skies employees must complete it within 30 days. The anonymous reporting system launched at 6 a.m. Daniel's phone buzzed. A market alert. Horizon Sky stock rebounds, up 3.2%. Investors weren't punishing swift action. They were rewarding it. Later that day, Horizon's CEO Claire Monroe appeared on CNBC. With measured tone and a steady gaze, she announced the Dignity in the Skies initiative, developed in partnership with Daniel's team. Mr. Rivers' experience was unacceptable, she said. But his response showed us a pathway, how to turn corporate failure into systemic reform. By the following morning, the reporting system had logged its first complaint, a black family harassed by ground staff in Denver. Unlike the past, the case wasn't buried. It was already under independent investigation. At 11 a.m., Claire called Daniel on video. Daniel, she said with a faint smile. The first quarterly report is ready. Discrimination complaints down 67%. Customer satisfaction up. Most importantly, 12 employees have already reported incidents they previously would have stayed silent about. That, Daniel said, leaning back in his chair, is the real victory. When your people start choosing accountability without fear. Claire added, 6 other airlines have reached out. They want to license the training protocol through your nonprofit. Excellent. All proceeds go to diversity scholarships. And the bonus structure? She asked. Daniel smiled. Claire raised a hand in surrender. Approved. 20% of executive bonus is now tied to measurable inclusion outcomes. First evaluation, next month. Daniel turned to another screen, a dashboard tracking impact metrics. The hashtag Dignity in the Skies had been used over 47,000 times. The movement had inspired 12 similar programs in other transportation companies. Greyhound and Amtrak had already implemented anonymous reporting. 3 hotel chains followed suit. Then came the letters. Dozens of them. Stories from passengers, many black, many brown, many marginalized, who had endured what Daniel had but without the platform to fight back. One stood out. Mr. Rivers. I was on United Flight 237 last month. I had the same experience, but no one filmed it. Your story gave me the strength to file a legal complaint. I'm now working with the ACLU to document bias across airlines. Angela Thompson, MBA. Daniel filed her letter under systemic action. Her case would soon form part of a class action lawsuit that reshaped industry practices. 3 months later, the Department of Transportation announced new federal rules requiring airlines to publicly report all discrimination complaints. The law was unofficially dubbed the Rivers Rule. Claire Monroe called again, not to apologize this time, but to thank him. Your stand gave us the political leverage to fix what was broken. And the transformation wasn't just institutional, it was deeply personal. 2 years after that fateful flight, Daniel stood at the podium of the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, delivering the keynote at the Transportation Equality Summit. His words cut through the silence. Change doesn't require rage. It requires evidence and strategy. Among the crowd sat Sarah Ford, the former flight attendant, now a certified diversity consultant. During the Q&A, she stood. Mr. Rivers. I was the one who started all this. I want to publicly apologize and thank you. I've spent the last 2 years learning from my mistake. I now teach others how not to make it. Applause erupted. Next, Angela Thompson took the stage. Her legal victory had trained over 47,000 airline staff. Her voice didn't tremble when she said, "You don't have to be a billionaire to make change. You just have to refuse to accept injustice." Daniel turned to the camera, thousands watching live. Every time you document discrimination, every time you speak up, you become part of something bigger. Don't just witness injustice. Disrupt it. Change is not a miracle, it's a method. And just like that, Flight 880 didn't just reach New York. It changed the course of an entire industry. This wasn't just a story about a man in seat 1A. It was about what happens when someone refuses to be silent. When dignity is defended, not with anger, but with truth. Daniel Rivers didn't raise his voice. He raised the standard. And because of him, the next passenger who looks different, dresses differently, or comes from a different background will be treated with respect, not suspicion. That's what real change looks like. Quiet, unshakable, and permanent. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, if you've ever felt underestimated, overlooked, or unheard, know that your story matters too. Drop a comment below with your thoughts or experiences. Like if you believe dignity should never come with conditions. And subscribe so you never miss a story that speaks truth to power. Together, We build a community where justice isn't optional, it's expected. Because change doesn't start at the top. It starts with people like you. See you in the next story.